Hey everyone, my name is Maya Smith. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'm so proud to be the executive director of Lady Gaga's Born This Way Foundation. I'm so excited to be joined today by this incredible panel so that we can dive into the recent report put out by Born This Way Foundation and Indeed entitled Kindness in the Workplace. We found in this research that most young people are searching for workplaces that prioritize kindness and enact policies that concretely support mental health. We've long known about the inextricable link between kindness and mental wellness, and we're so excited to bring it to the workplace. The survey revealed that young people are more likely to be passionate about their careers and invested in their work if they are in a kind workplace that prioritizes mental health, which we view as a win-win from employees and employers. As you'll hear in today's conversation, we still have a long way to go to ensuring that all workplaces are affirming, inclusive places that celebrate young workers. But if anyone can solve many of the challenges that we're facing, it's this incredible panel that's here today. And so I'm so grateful to each of you for joining. And I'd love to have you introduce yourselves to our audience. First up, we can start with Misty.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I am Misty Gaither, the Senior Director and Global Head of Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging at Indeed. I am really excited to join this panel and have this conversation today. I think it's really important to underscore the importance of kindness, the connectivity to mental health and well-being. And my personal perspective is that we can only really be effective at driving inclusive work environments if we are prioritizing the conversation. It also will help us to stabilize attrition that we're seeing in this workforce right now, especially with the labor market. And I think it just kind of basically destigmatizes something that has been so taboo to discuss for so long. So I'm excited to dive into this report with these wonderful panelists. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Misty, and thank you so much for your incredible partnership to you and the whole Indeed team for making this research a possibility. Next, I'd love to kick it to Keely to introduce yourself.
Hey, thank you so much. Hi, my name is Keely Catwell, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm so excited to be a part of this conversation. I founded a company called C Talent, which is a talent agency that represents high-profile deaf and disabled talent and consults for companies, helping them become disability inclusive and accessible beyond compliance. It's a company that I founded when I became disabled at 17 years old and lost a job in the entertainment industry because of ableism. And my goal and my company's goal is to change the way the world views and defines disability and to normalize disabled people being experts in subjects beyond disability. Kindness and mental health is so incredibly important, both in society and within our company and within every single company. And it leads towards momentous change, and it can even change laws. I mean, for instance, one thing that we're very focused on is advocating to change sub-minimum wage, which is still legal for disabled people. And I think inadequate pay is a big issue, and it has a big impact on mental health within the workspace. So really excited to be speaking about all things mental health in this panel with these amazing panelists. So thank you.
Thank you, Keely. We're so grateful for your time. And Gohar, thank you so much for joining us. Would love to have you introduce yourself.
Of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Gohar Khan. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Next Admit. We're on a mission to empower students on their journey to higher education, and we do so by providing affordable college counseling services to students around the world. And I started this company really out of my own experience in the admissions process and realizing that most counseling services were very overpriced for low-income students. And so we're on a mission to help students write killer essays, make sure that they have a profile that stands out to colleges, and give students the confidence that they can get into the colleges of their dreams and succeed in school.
Thank you so much for being here, Gohar. And Misty, I hope you don't mind, but I'll put you and I to the side as youth adjacent, right? Young people ourselves. So I'll ask Keely and Gohar this first question. We know that investments in mental health aren't just the right things for employers to do on principle, though they absolutely are. In a job market that's increasingly characterized by young people moving around and the transience of this generation, providing key mental health resources and fostering kind working communities will help retain employees and attract top talent. So in your opinion, how can employers take a more active role in fostering workplaces that model belonging and more importantly, or not more importantly, but also in addition to promoting belonging, really prevent and work against exclusion?
I think for me personally, what I've learned from experience is that we represent high profile deaf and disabled talent. We are very heavily invested in advocating for accessibility within our company and also externally beyond just our company. And I think it's incredibly important that all companies make sure that they both invest within change in their company, but also externally. Because I think a lot of the times employees care so much about their job and what they're doing that they also want to work on things outside of the company too, but often feel that burden of a broken society and feel like they have to fix everything. So I think companies can work harder by prioritizing creating more accessible spaces and more opportunities to show how much they genuinely care and to show that they want to fix things, not just because they know that it's going to make them money within, the physical product or service that they're delivering, but also because they want to make a better world. And I think that will in turn improve mental health for employees and within the company internally. And I think also, small things like making sure that they invest and budget for when people do have success within the company. So you can recognize accomplishments, not just by saying, congratulations and genuinely meaning it, but also by, offering financial reward. I think that's incredibly important.
Absolutely. And thank you for again reminding us that it's not just there is value in talking about it, right? But that the huge value inside and outside of organizations comes from action. So thank you for that reminder. Gohar, I'd love your thoughts.
Of course. So I think Keely raises some great points about empathy, essentially, making sure that we're listening to employees, acknowledging their needs and making sure that they feel validated. And along these lines, I think it's super critical that employers acknowledge and look at the data. If we look at the study, what we see is that, our BIPOC and LGBTQ plus peers, they're much more likely to face discrimination in the workplace. They're much more likely to have unkind work environments. They're much more likely to have less pay. And I think by, having these sorts of studies and putting these in front of employers is one of the great first steps to motivate them to take the initiatives, to take action within their own workplaces to foster a more inclusive and welcoming environment.
Absolutely. Thank you. Misty, does this sound in line with what you've been hearing at Indeed?
Absolutely. You both raised some very valid points. I love the call out around intersectionality. The only thing I'll add here is that employers, I don't want to speak for all employers, but I think employers that are doing this well, they have the programs in place. But I think it's important to go beyond just having the benefit offering to support mental health and wellness. I think that it has to be socialized. And I think it's important to normalize the conversation and get really specific about what we are solving for. And so, I think people are used to having to talk about like persons with disabilities and making them feel included, but we haven't spent as much time about, disability and neurodiversity awareness. And I think the more we actually get our leadership comfortable with recognizing these are key attributes of what makes an environment inclusive where people feel like they belong, I think progress can be made and we can certainly start to, maybe stabilize some of the attrition and the movement that we see with this, new workforce.
I can't underscore that enough, Missy. I think it's so important that we don't skip ahead to sort of the complicated solutions that are available to us and say that at the beginning, we need to talk about it. We need to normalize it. And we as leaders start, right? And that's often a hard and vulnerable thing. Misty, I want to ask you about a statistic from our research that really surprised me, and I'd love to hear if this was surprising to you. So we found that over half of working people under 30 say that since the pandemic began, their employers have made no meaningful changes to implement policy to improve diversity, equity, inclusion, foster a kinder work environment, or look after the mental or physical health of their employees. So this to me, especially when you read the headlines about permanent work from home and how workplaces are changing, this to me really was surprising. So Misty, I'd love your take on why do you think this is, and how can employers take the first step towards supporting their employees, pandemic and otherwise, and making those changes that have become so clearly needed over the past 2.5 years?
It absolutely is surprising that there hasn't been a focus on this, because all of the data suggest that the pandemic only exacerbated issues that had gone unaddressed in multiple organizations for a long period of time. And I really think that, largely diversity, inclusion, and belonging has been a bit adjacent to the business. And, if you leverage this opportunity that we all have had over the past 3 years, because I'm still counting this year because we're still in the pandemic, to really take a step back and reevaluate what's been happening in the organization. We mentioned this in the previous question, but listening to the folks in your organization, allowing them to inform what's happening. And what I think employers can do is really look at the benefits that they're offering and include various employee assistance programs and give people the additional support they need, especially in times of crises. And we are in a perpetual state of crisis right now. And I think socializing those resources, creating the awareness, educating the employees on what to do, when, and how to leverage those benefits are all areas where we can actually start to make some progress. And I will absolutely kind of underscore the importance of, when you go and find these third-party organizations to provide these benefits, it's important to do that with a lens for inclusion, to ensure that once you actually implement them, that your employees who need those benefits the most are actually taking advantage of them. I think we have not focused enough on the importance of what happens from a biological standpoint when people feel like they don't belong, or when things are distracting them from, being their best selves at work. And there's just so many ways that we can approach this and actually make this integral to not just our benefits, but to our entire organizational culture. And I think there's an opportunity for us to continue to determine what the best path forward is, because the future of work is still unknown. And so while I might come across like I have a lot of answers and things that are going really well, we are still experimenting with what is the best possible way to highlight and elevate the necessity for these benefits to be readily accessible across all of our businesses.
Thank you so much, Misty, for that actionable answer. So, Keely, let's build on that. We know there's more to be done to build kind workspaces. Misty talked about understanding what people are bringing into work with them and what systems they need to succeed. As it stands in the report, we found that just 6 in 10 young people report working in a kind community. And the reality is worse still among LGBTQ young workers, of whom just over half say that they work in a kind environment. Keely, I'd love your thoughts on some key ways that you foster a kind workplace for your whole team and encourage other folks to do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so important what Misty mentioned as well, of, keeping that conversation around mental health and the action around mental health going every single day. So it does become a part of the culture, and it would be weird if it wasn't talked about. I think it's similar as well to what Misty mentioned of those access requirements for physically disabled people. And slowly but surely, I think those accommodations for disabled people are being put in place. But historically, disability and mental health has been so taboo and so portrayed in so many ways in the media, where it's not been positive and it's looked at as a weakness. And I think people are so scared to disclose disability, to disclose mental health, because it culturally is still seen as a weakness. And employers, I think, can really shift that perspective by talking about it, by taking action about it, and creating that access so it becomes a norm. I think for us, ways in which we create a kinder workplace is by recognizing both personal and professional accomplishments. As I mentioned, we're a disabled-led company, and a lot of people within our company are disabled. And recently, one of my colleagues finally got a diagnosis, And this was huge. She'd been fighting for this diagnosis for so long. And we all celebrated this momentous news. And it wasn't just a win for her, it was a win for the entire company, because we know how much her personal life affects her professional life. And equally, someone within our company closed the biggest individual deal that's ever been closed. And we celebrated that just as much. So I think there's a lot of lines sometimes that gets drawn between personal and professional work, but I think it would be a kind of workplace if those lines weren't to the detriment of one's mental health.
Absolutely. And Keely, I love that you mentioned celebration. I think oftentimes when we talk about mental health in the workplace, it feels like this heavy thing, but I think we can celebrate eliminating stigma and modeling vulnerability and celebrating successes. I think those are such key important points. So Gohar, I'd love to bring you in. Not enough young people have access, we know, to critical mental health resources, and investments in mental health aren't just the right thing for employers to do. They're necessary from so many different levels. It's a smart business decision. So Gohar, from an employee perspective, what are you hearing from the young people that you work with and connect with about the kind of support that they hope to receive from an employer? And maybe is that changing at all from what you would have expected? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Definitely. So I think when you look at young people and their expectations from employers, we can divide what they want into two broad categories. You have things that they want from the work environment themselves, and then they also have things that they want out of the job in terms of perks and benefits that come along with, actually having the role. And I think when it comes to young people, they're very vocal about essentially the bare minimum that is necessary to have a kind and productive work environment. I think what I've noticed is that when it comes to the environment, at least, a lot of these initiatives don't require extra spending from employers. It really includes things as simple as, sitting down with your employees, having check-ins, acknowledging their work, making sure that they feel listened to, validated, seen in their workspace. And so I think when it comes to fostering kindness and really focusing on mental health, what young people want out of their employers is just at the very base, simple acknowledgement. And then when we look one level above that, we also want investment. And it is true that young people expect their employers to invest in their mental health and to put their mental health as one of the priorities along with their financial stability. And so when we look at investments that employers can make, one of the top ones that comes right off the page is mental health insurance and coverage. 3 in 4 young people can't afford mental health therapy and resources because it's very much just unaffordable. So employers can definitely look into providing these resources and then also making them more accessible and affordable for their employees in the workspace. And I think young people, once they're in an environment that they feel supports them, not only in a professional way, but also a personal way, I think we'll see a lot more, not only productivity, but affinity for the workplace.
I think you're absolutely right. And I'm proud of young people for expecting this, right? Not just demanding this, but expecting this and looking for it when they choose employment. I think that's so important and a really strong message to all employers. So I'm going to ask you all, Keely, Gohar, and then Misty in that order. It's clear from this research and from everything we just talked about that young people need a more concerted effort to better support their mental health at home, in school, and in the workplace. Born This Way Foundation exists to address each of those pieces, but we're going to do so in collaboration and in community. So I want to talk for a moment directly to the young people that are seeking these services, that are facing these challenges, that are addressing these opportunities. So what advice do each of you have to the young people seeking to better support their mental health and that of their peers and their colleagues? Keely, would love to hear from you first.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first thing I would say is don't fall prey to hustle culture. That rise and grind, don't stop until you've achieved a certain, I think it's so damaging to mental health and physical health to be in that space. Hustle culture is so damaging, and it's preventing real work, and it's exhausting young people. And so that's the first thing I would say. And then I would also say, don't be afraid to ask for what you need. Don't feel like you're the only one within your company or organization dealing with what you're dealing with. There are so many other people like you. So chat with your colleagues, chat with your employer, chat with other people, create a collective, create a support system, build that around you so you can perform your duties better, so you can live a better life. And because, you know, caring for your mental health, caring for other people's mental health is only going to be beneficial to you in so many different ways. And then the last thing I would say is, you know, normalize sharing accessible mental health resources. There are so many amazing resources out there. I think, you know, share them in your Slack groups, in your WhatsApp groups, share them wherever you have those chats going. And, you know, things like the Be There certificate, which is an incredible resource to be able to support your colleagues and also ensuring that you're looking after yourself at the same time. And Channel Kindness and Please Stay. And I just remember when I first found out about those resources, I was just so amazed that they even existed that I just had to share them everywhere. So you never know who they're going to help. So just share them.
Thank you, Keely. And you're doing my work for me with the plugs. I think you're right. Free, accessible mental health resources. When we know something that might help ourselves or someone in our lives, don't hoard it, share it. And the amazing resources that you just mentioned, we're really proud of. The first is the Be There certificate. It's a free online mental health resource, takes you through the 5 golden rules of how to be there for someone. It was created in partnership with our friends at jack.org, and it can be found at betherecertificate.org. Channelkindness.org, which is actually the first place I look at every morning when I wake up, because it's a community filled with stories of kindness. We invite young people, Keely a number of times has written, young people from all over the world to share their stories of resilience, of community, of collaboration, of hope. And then Please Stay. PleaseStay.us is an important suicide prevention resource founded with our friends at Find Your Anchor. So thank you, Keely, for mentioning all of those. Gohar, I'd love to hear your advice to young people.
Definitely. So I think the biggest pattern that I've noticed in posting my content for a bunch of high school and college students is that young people have this notion, this idea of comparing themselves to what they see on social media. And I think social media, TikTok especially, you know, whenever you're scrolling, it kind of presents itself in a way where you see these ideal lives that you one day want to live, whether it's getting into a dream school, you know, working in tech, moving to California, becoming an actor. I think TikTok is very good at just pushing these narratives about what your life could be and what it isn't right now. And so I think the most important piece of advice that I have for young people is to realize that all of these sorts of fabrications that you see on social media are just that. Like they're fabrications, you know, they're very finely crafted in a way that isn't super realistic. And you shouldn't compare yourself to what you see on social media. You should take pride in what you've already accomplished, and you should take pride in, you know, the journey that you're living. And I think to Keely's point about hustle culture, you know, pace yourself in a way that's comfortable for you, and realize that your own journey is unique, that it may not follow what you see others follow. And that is totally fine, because what you have in store for you, you know, is meant for you. And I think not only having that in mind, but having conversations about this with your friends is critical. You know, be open, be vulnerable, realize that, you know, social media isn't the narrative that you should be following, and really just take things at your own pace.
Gohar, thank you so much for that really thoughtful response. I feel like both of you are saying things that I so desperately want to hear. And on the topic of TikTok, I'll mention that the foundation led by Josh Holland has an incredible TikTok presence, and we're trying to remind folks in that social media comparison world that it's okay to not be okay, that there's resources, that there's conversations that exist. And we're working on the social media platforms to prepare young people to lean into those hard conversations that they may have to have with their friends. So thank you again for reminding us the importance of supporting a friend or loved one. That is so essential. And we know from our research that there are many topics on which young people are more likely to turn to a friend versus a parent or a guardian. So our role in the lives of our friends is really, really important. So Misty, I'd love for you to close us out in this resource sharing in the spirit of openness. What else should we be sharing in terms of supporting employee mental health?
I definitely think for everyone that's listening, take this report. And if your company is not aware of it, take it and surface it. Do not wait for someone to find it and bring it. I think it's really important to have both a top down and a bottoms up approach. I love the commentary around social media. And here's what I'll say. One, the rules are all made up. And so if you've been following this traditional path for your life that's been laid out for you, understand that you can actually divorce yourself from those ideas and create the path that resonates most with you. I'll be very candid. My therapist, yes, I go to therapy, says to me, give yourself what you need in the moment so you can play the long game. That's one. Number two is you can only give from your overflow. And so the hustle culture that Keely mentioned, it absolutely is not what we want to continue to glamorize. I read a book recently that I think is a great resource, and it's How to Break Up with Your Phone. And so recognizing that while there are a lot of lives that we get the highlight reels from on social media, when you look at the global population, it's only a fraction of people who are on these platforms that are sharing their lives with us. And so I absolutely think it's important to continue to normalize the conversation, check in on your strong friends, and take time away from work to recharge and to refresh, because the long-term benefits are just beyond your comprehension, and how quickly you can come back with a fresh perspective, more engaged, and just more balanced to do whatever it is that you're returning to. And so, I would just say, if you're thinking about this in the work context, do not let up in terms of ensuring that there is proper structure in place, and not just programming, but policies and procedures. That's one of the things that we work really hard towards at Indeed, is to ensure that it's embedded in the infrastructure of our organization. And so again, take a look at the report and enjoy the rest of the day, I would say, and just normalize having discussions around mental health and wellness. I think that's the advice I would give to young people.
Thank you, Misty. Thank you so much. And I too go to therapy, and I'm super proud about it. Thank you so much, Keely, Gohar, and Misty, for sharing resources, for speaking so candidly and hopefully about the future of kindness and mental health in the workplace. This research shows that we have a long way to go, but with young leaders like yourselves, commitments from organizations like Indeed, I'm hopeful that we might be able to get there. So as Misty said, please check out this research, Kindness in the Workplace, and share it with the folks in your workplace and beyond. We're so grateful for your time. We're so grateful that you're in this community, and we look forward to talking again soon. Thank you so much to all of you.